Hello everyone, Burp here. Registration day for Cancer Cup has arrived, which means I want to go and talk about the next Champions meeting, which is the Leo Cup. Now, this is the overview video for the Sprint CM, also known as Champions Meeting 16. I like to release this on registration day because as part of my anti-frustration plan, I like to draw today as the line in the sand so that I don't go and try to min-max Umas on short notice so that when I fail, I become frustrated. It's just a personal thing for me to lower my stress and my frustration with the game. So instead, I spend this time building parents for the next CM. However, this particular Champions meeting, Leo Cup, just like the previous Leo Cup, who had Unity Cup scenario, has something that increases the ceiling of pretty much every single Uma in the game, and that is Throne. Throne is a very powerful card. Most likely, it will make your Umas better because you get skill points, speed, wit, as well as a gold skill to spend those skill points on. It's a very, very powerful card that's probably is a must borrow for Champions Meeting 15 when she actually comes out. Now, it's not 100% required to remake your team, and what I suggest is have your team 100% ready. Be happy with the team that you have. If you end up hitting with Throne and making it better, that is just a bonus at that point. That is the essence of what I am suggesting. Otherwise, if you don't hit and you don't hit your distance S and you don't hit all the skills that you need, you're just going to frustrate yourself even more because you don't have a fallback to actually run onto. So at least try to get some passable Umas, if not some good Umas that you're happy to run. I will be going and re-rolling winning ticket with it because I want to see my Oshi win more. If I hit with her and it gets better than the one I made before, great. If I don't, perfectly fine as well. That's just my take on should you remake with Throne. But today we are talking about the Leo Cup. This is the overview video. In the coming days, I will be making the different role-based guides that go particularly into the different role skills, as well as how to play them and the characters and all that. You've done that before, as well as the debrief video when the actual CM ends. But today, I'll be going over the track itself, as well as the justifications for stat requirements, parent inherits, as well, just to get you started with parent building, as well as some deck building suggestions and some general observations and kind of how I think this Champions meeting is going to go with the various different roles and how they play and intertwine with each other. So without further ado, let's begin and talk about the Leo Cup. We are on the Sprinter Stakes, which is the Nakayama 1200 meter sprint track. It's a pretty fun track, honestly. If you like sprints, it's one of the good ones too. Your greens are right-handed summer runner, sunny days, firm conditions, standard distance, and Nakayama race course. Notably, this is a firm track. It is the last time that Narita Top Road will be top meta. So if you want firm course metas, it is perfectly fine to get it as a green because this is a firm track. This track's pretty funny because at the start, this little tilde that you see means that it is neither a straight nor a corner, which means straight skills and corner skills cannot proc here. So there's practically no skills that can really proc in this zone. And instead, the only thing that can really proc is a downhill skill because this is also a downhill. So straight descent and determined descent where you pace chaser mains basically gets value no matter really where it procs because it could proc at groundwork timing, it could proc at shrewd step timing, it could also proc in the transition between early race and mid race. All three of these have an increase in your target speed, which means that you will get value because you're accelerating faster than people who do not have the skill. So straight descent's a 0.2, determined descent's a 0.3. Not necessarily need the determined descent, but straight descent is, I think, a good value skill. I'll delve into it more in the Pace Chaser guide. After that, it flattens out pretty quickly into that first corner. That first corner begins the mid-race. There is no straight in the mid-race, so all your corner skills are guaranteed mid-race or dead. We'll talk about that later. But your straight skills are pure late race, and your corner skills are the bulk of your mid-race because mid-race is going to be important because you want to go and establish position in this first corner. Now, 777 is too early for any Oguri Cap Christmas shenanigans. It just makes it mid-race if it ends up becoming the trigger here, and you don't generally want any like stamina skills really on the sprint tracks because stamina is not going to be really that useful. The position keep ends on what looks like is a straight, but really is just the transition between the two corners. There is no straight here. It is just corner 3 transitioning into corner 4. And the final corner is very, very powerful because if you look here, basically there is a high chance of speed carry over because it is just not much there. Now, the thing is it can also whiff if it goes and procs after that spurt because your target speed's already increased here, so it is a little risky, but final corner skills still work out pretty well, and this is a sprint CM, which means that speed carryover and acceleration are your two means of victory mainly because it's very difficult to hit max speed and sustain that for a very long time because it's just very, very short late race. That late race starts on a straight. The late race starts on the final corner second half. So stuff like Taiki Shuttle and Nishino Flower ultimates are very, very good for pace chasers in particular on this one, but anyone who's able to get into third and fourth. And the straight is technically diminished value, but still fine unless you really get like 0.6, but at that point you're probably winning anyways. So the straight accelerations are still okay. We'll talk about that in the parent section. Now, this final straight is only 300 meters because this is the Nakayama track, which is very good for front runners and pace chasers in general because there really isn't much time to duel and much time for the late surges and end closers to catch up. Now, that doesn't mean they're completely dead. They have a lot of mid-race as well, and if they beat you in the mid-race and they hit one of their gamble accelerations, they're still just going to hit, but pace chasers and front runners do have a slight advantage in that respect. Otherwise, there is an absolutely killer Nakayama's famous uphill basically. If you do not have the power, you will bump into the max speed because uphill lowers your max target speed if you don't have enough power. So any amount of power is very good. I almost like power more than wit almost because it just honestly will win you races when you're just faster than everyone because they haven't gotten sufficient power. We'll be going over stat thresholds right now. There's two primary decks. The main one's probably going to be the Guts build, but Speed, Power, Wit does still work. If you're doing that, you try to max your speed, your power, and your wit and get a decent amount of Guts. Stamina, you just get whatever the game gets you because 300 stamina will make you spurt no matter what and survive. Now, any extra stamina will be used in dueling, but at some point you don't really need it. So the game's probably going to give you 600. Just take it if it gives it to you. Now, if you're a front runner and you have spot struggle, you need like 100 extra stamina for spot struggle. And then if you get rushed while you're spot struggling, it's really like 300 stamina burn, and you can't really prevent that too much. So I'd just go and give whatever stamina the game gives you in the scrolls and stuff. Go from there. You're going to have to get the Japanese Oaks anyways if you're going for epithets anyways, so you probably will have a decent amount of stamina. If you're running the Guts build, you basically lower your power a little bit. I think 1,000 is fine and 900 wit. These are all stuff to aim for. If you don't hit them exactly, it's perfectly fine because this is a skill-based CM in terms of I think skills are slightly more important than stats themselves. I think it's roughly 400 power as a 0.2 excel, so don't skimp on the power. But at the end of the day, if you have more skills than everyone else and you have more chances of speed carryover and acceleration, you're going to find you high roll more often and you actually win a lot still. For the parent inherits. For front runners, it's still a corner track, so you want angling and scheming, which is saying Sky Ultimate. And then after that, it gets a little bit light. You have your mid-race excels in Duty of Dignity Calls and Operation Cacao from V. Bourbon and Measure McQueen. And then after that, I have in the tertiary Summer Marzensky because I think that should be your grandparent this time. You don't really want to necessarily have a recovery unless it is Operation Cacao because it does give you speed. So I don't think it's as important if you had to choose between the two. And after that, you have VPP, but it is delayed and it does have diminished value because the straight is actually 100 meters late. So it's a little tough, but because it's very difficult to get enough excel on this track, any excel is kind of good. So I'm still suggesting it as a third tertiary option. A new thing from the re-recording to now is that Smart Falcon actually does work. We thought before that because there was no mid-race straight, that Smart Falcon alt would not work. But credit to the Discord, we found out that all it says is not corner. This is also known as a not corner because it's neither a straight or a corner, which means that this little one frame where she has like basically the straight of the mid-race right here, it's not a straight, but she has this little amount that isn't a corner for a little bit, you will find that Sparkly Stardom does actually proc. So as a character, she goes from being a character without an ultimate to being probably one of the most powerful characters in the game because she basically can just win the early race and then get to this final corner and be very tough to pass at that point. So Smart Falcon is somebody that actually does work. Credit again to DeLorean in the Discord for finding that out. For pace chasers, you have every tool in the book. Taiki Shuttle, Nishino Flower are third and fourth, and if you hit third and fourth, you hit 0.4, and that is your game plan. If you're one of these characters, you hit 0.6, you put the other on it. Otherwise, you can do your final corner passes, although final corner passing is hard, it still gives you speed carryover if you do it, and also there is basically a little bit of timing here where it's not necessarily final corner that you can pass somebody and get some value with it, and then also just grab like Augury Cap Regular for the 200 meter final Triumphant Pulse. After that, there's a couple of other options. You can go pseudo front runner for the lucky paces. I don't necessarily think that there will be too many lucky pace lobbies, but who knows? When people are running triple pace chaser, you'll probably get into a lobby with it. And also you have that groundwork plus shrewd step plus, you know, like terminal ascent. You have a lot of different early race accelerations to go and hopefully not PDM yourself and get really close to the front runners anyways. Otherwise, you have just other basic 0.15s, 0.25s, late race ultimates, that possibly could work. Otherwise, late surgers and end closers, a little bit tough because we only have Ryan to be a guaranteed positional base acceleration at 6th, and 6 is a little bit tough as well when people are hitting 0.4 from 4th position as well. I have put Trace and Cheer up here for the same reason as Pasa. It is an option, and we're kind of light on accelerations in the late surger main, but usually we'll probably go off of On Your Left or off of back or corner connoisseur, stuff like that, I think will be our primary accelerations. Otherwise, Nemesis seems to work actually quite well because you don't have to actually pass, you just have to is overtake, and then otherwise you can go and proc Nishino Flower. Now Nishino Flower, remember that alt can be in the final corner or later, which means that if you hit 6th place, you can go and somehow get into 4th place for the people who don't hit and proc this as sort of a combo, which we will talk about in a bit. Otherwise, grab your late race skills. Emperor is going to be very good because you're probably going to be behind a bunch of pace chasers that don't hit, as well as Triumphant Pulse in the final corners, and you can also gamble with some, is overtake with El Condor Pasta Fantasy, or we do Blockside Continue Time if you really like that. Winning ticket player here, it's quite tough, but Gold City Festival technically works as well. They're not really that efficient. Taiki Shuttle ult is a little bit tough because if you aren't in 4th position or 3rd position by that corner, it's just kind of dead. So I find that, hey, Nishino Flower is just a little bit better because you can still late proc and get at least some value. Taiki Shuttle is basically feast or famine, lob and gamble. Note that there is a combo that has existed for quite a while in that measure Orion into some regular Marzensky, into Nishino Flower. Now this combo has existed for a while. I really don't like the combo because you should probably be pushing up and hoping you're going into 5th place, but because I put Trace and Cheer here, technically, some regular Marzensky ultimate is kind of the same thing, except in that final corner, you want to make sure you're not touching 5th place. If you're not touching 5th place, then hopefully you hit your 6th place with Measure Orion into the 5th place with Marzensky pretty quickly, and then into 4th place with Nishino Flower. However, it's going to be tough because the person in 4th place is probably also hitting 0.4. So it's going to be difficult to pass them that quickly to get all 3 of these off. And that is why I think you're gambling at this point. And so you should consider the corner connoisseur. You should consider the gambling ultimates at that point. If you were playing a late surger or an end closer, try to go and get back into parity. I've gone through a couple of caveats here. I've talked about the final straight accels, how they have diminished value because they delay proc by about 100 meters, but if you are light on accelerations, they are quite an option. Like they are an option that exists. Otherwise, 400-meter velocity skills and basically starter final straight skills do not work, which means that Bark Roll of Blessings, for example, it just procs too early. It will always be eaten by the acceleration zone. 300 meters are the same way, except if you hit your acceleration, you will reach max speed by then. It requires 0.4 acceleration, which is quite difficult to do. However, if you are actually if you're a Chio player and you have that 300-meter ultimate, you should be just fine because your ultimate duration is stretched a little bit further than the rest of us. Dober ultimate, as well as regular Marzensky ultimate for pace chasers and frontrunners who will proc it instantly. These final corner type accelerations happen too early. You will not leak into the actual acceleration zone to give you any possible value. For deck building suggestions, it does get a little bit weird because we have to incorporate a card we haven't seen on Global. This is the mandatory borrow. It is that powerful. But I've seen a lot of people's screenshots in the decks they've been running, as well as seeing in practice in sort of JP server tests where we go and put this card in as a borrow slot with a couple of actual global cards and seeing how the scenario works. And I think it can slot into a few different places. If you have 2 of these 3 things, I think it can replace a wit card. If you have a strong wit card to use in the solo wit slot, as well as a 10% wit bonus or wit sparks, you need 2 of those 3. I think you're able to hit that sort of 800 to 1,000 wit threshold. And with the additional guts you get from guts build or the additional skills you get from the bonus speed power wit decks, I think it justifies the loss of 100 to 200 wit by running solo wit. This doesn't really apply to front runners because you have to run the taking the lead card if you don't have it in kit, which is Mihono Bourbon wit. But it is able to replace the secondary wit slot because it does give enough wit and a little bit of speed to help with this deck. Now, guts build versus speed power wit deck basically is the same as the Miles CM. It is a shorter final straight, so guts matters tiny bit less, but then again, there isn't really any way except spot struggle for front runners to go and get that early race advantage. So there is trade-offs to the guts and the speed power wit deck, but I think both are perfectly viable. So you could try 1-3-1 Throne as a deck building suggestion. If you don't have a strong wit card bonus or wit sparks, you can go and just run triple wit, basically double wit and Throne with a speed and double guts. There's just so many different ways you can build your deck in this one. If you don't want to do guts at all, you do have the speed power wit deck and the same rules apply. If you have a strong wit card, you are able to go and you have a little bit of wit sparks, you're able to solo wit and you can RNG whether or not that wit card goes to the wit button. But if it does, you should have enough wit to get to the thresholds as well as getting some additional speed and power for some comfort and some incredible amount of race bonus on those power cards. Otherwise, if you don't, you go and you just run the double wit that you normally do. You drop a power card because it's still a 10% race bonus card, and you go from there. Otherwise, some other options, you can just speed wit it out. You can go just triple wit plus 2 speed plus a power card. You can go 3 speed, 3 wit, or 2 wit and Throne. I think you're going to find you're going to overcap speed quite easily because Throne gives you quite a bit of speed as well, but it is an option, and I think there will be a pretty comfort deck where you go and you actually just run like speed, Fuku, and Throne at the same time, and you basically just get all your stats that you need at that point. I think there's even going to be a deck where you don't even run a wit card. I think it's an option because basically you're just having triple guts. You just throw a million wit sparks on it and that should carry you with the Throne wit. And then after that, you can use the extra slot to normalize your speed and power by getting an extra speed tap. You're basically going to have 1200 speed and 1200 power on the sprint track. That's very powerful and quite a bit of guts if you do the guts build. Or you can even slot in like just an Ayabe for the occasional summer guts tap that if your training effectiveness cards go over there, as well as the additional 15% race bonus to get uber high levels of RB. What is this? 5, 15, 30, 45, 60, that's 70% race bonus, and you could even have 75 if you decide to run NTR instead. Basically, I'm saying is that you can run pretty much whatever stuff that you have. It's a sprint CM. We don't really have to care about stamina. Now, if you don't run a wit card, though, a lot of the wit cards have very good skills. I mean, Light Surger's like on your left if you're back half of the pack. If you are an end closer, Daring Strike is pretty much a must, so you pretty much have to run CB, unless, of course, you're, I guess, borrowing Throne, and then you just take with what you got. And then Find Motion does give Prepared to Pass. Let you think on that one a little bit. Otherwise, I think there's a couple of good cards, and a lot of the good cards are on the power and speed, and this is where the trade-off is with the Guts build, is you're losing a lot of it. Now, you do get in high spirits with the Bakashin card for fronts and paces, and of course, Fast and Furious is on the Marvy power card, which does give a ton of race bonus. Throne gives Photon Slash, which is completely irrelevant, and I should not have even included that. So ignore that. That is a medium skill. However, Throne is just that powerful for the stats itself. Pro Curve, It's On, Escape Artist, all these are on speed and power cards, and the Guts cards outside of Bakashin are kind of lacking, and if you don't own Bakashin 3LB+, you probably aren't using it because you need to borrow Throne. If you do not want to use Throne because you are a Tokai Teo or Symboli Rudolph player, you can just run the standard stuff that you ran in the Miles CM. Standard 1-3-2 Guts works. I think you do need to sort of high roll your character because you're losing out a lot in skill points. So you can either do that through Guts building or just running a speed power wit deck and trying to outskill people with the different gold skills. A lot of this stuff is going to be down to your parents and how well you are able to go and inherit all these different white skills onto your characters that you need for just your standard, what's it called, like your sprint corners, sprint straights, all that stuff. That's all, it's not sprint straights, sprint corners, your roll corners, stuff that is like all mid-race. That's how you can go and kind of bridge the gap between not being able to run Throne. To close this video out, I'll go over some suggestions and observations. I know it's been kind of all over the place today, so I apologize for that. I'll try to rein it in a little bit here. First of all, Goldship does have a gun now, so we will have access to Summer Goldship, and while Summer Goldship herself cannot be a dedicated debuffer because there's no debuffs in her kit, you can throw it on a Dominator debuffer mainly, and basically the medium Dominator will be pulled if it's the only gold to some part in the late race, and you will get some level of value from it. So you can still solo ace double dominator now because of gold chip. Now, this is a lot of skill points, and the ace probably will not win, but know that dominator and also technically battle formation can be used on these tracks that do not normally have like debuffs attached to them. Also, Adore by All does exist. That is on current Chan. You probably just take the weight version of it if you're trying to build an ace, but if you're building a dedicated debuffer, maybe you take Adored by All. I don't think the extra 0.05 is worth it to stop you running an entire like chance of winning the game. Otherwise, my true suggestion, if there's, again, one thing that you take from this video, is that these Champions meetings, I think you should at least somewhat multitask. The parents that you're building now should probably also be the parents that you're trying to build for Grand Live in the future. You don't necessarily need to be building sprint parents. You can have sprints in your parent slots or your grandparent slots, but mainly the things that are important that you can run in this, this CM is that power and wit parents will be needed in Grand Live for the shorter tracks. Now, either power hits or wit hits are both good. You can even go and throw a stamina in there if you really, really think you need to have some more stamina for that Japanese Oaks. But I think power and wit are the sort of parents you kind of want to build. The previous CM Cancer Cup was kind of the one to start building your stamina parents and try to minimize, and that will make it so you can minimize or go further in parent building better parents once Grand Life hits, because we will still have to go and build those parents in trackblazer. Otherwise, some general observation. It is very much front and pace dominant. That is the meta. Basically, paces have all the tools in the world. However, third and fourth place is most of those tools, which means frontrunners are still able to box themselves out. However, there is enough downhill and tools for pace chasers to just ignore that fact too if they get lucky and don't PDM themselves early. Now, frontrunners will have access to top runner as well. They have access to the most mid-race in the game, and mid-race is very important on a track that has a very, very, very short late race straight. Gamblers still are fine though, because this is still a sprint and things are incredibly random. The fact of the matter is, no matter what position that you are, if you hit massive amounts of acceleration, you're probably going to win as long as you're not a million miles behind the pack, because there isn't much place to be that far back from the pack. So grab your mid-race and grab your accelerations, even if they're gambling, if you are a late surger or an end closer player, because you're going to be surprised at how often that you actually hit with stuff like corner connoisseur, stuff like on your left, because this is still a front and pace dominant meta. Just remember that they also have those things with neck and head on, as well as fronts have unrestrained. So everyone has a gambling option. If that gambling option does hit, they usually just win. Otherwise, again, this is a skill CM and not necessarily a stat CM. I would rather you run a few more races than absolutely max your speed, power, wit. If you still are able to get that, 1200, 1100, 1100, 1200, 1000, 1000, it looks nice on paper to be 1200, 1200, 1200. It gives you a ton of rating, but get the skills that are relevant, and that's really what matters in this Champions meeting. Remember that there is no mid-race straight, which means your straight skills are purely late race and can be eaten by the Excel zone if they decide to proc a little bit early. However, because this is hopefully after you hit a true acceleration, you usually will be able to get some value from straight skills. But just know that they can be easily clipped by the end of the race. They can be easily eaten by the Excel zone, and this is not a straight. This is not a straight, which means that corner skills are guaranteed mid-race and straight skills are basically guaranteed late race on the sprint track. A lot of people are also freaking out about this no zone. Yes, the no zone does exist. It's basically a place where front runners and pretty much any role, but it's less common in other roles, can't pass somebody because they're changing lanes preparing for this corner. This isn't a straight or a corner, so I don't think there's any skill really that can proc in this no zone. Like, the worst case scenario that happens is, hey, oh no, your escape artist procced on first timing. That's really unfortunate, but honestly, with how much mid-race there is, it's very unlikely to happen. So don't really put it in your head that that no zone is going to do too much. I don't think it's going to be as relevant as people say, because there really isn't any skill that can proc in this zone. Again, my anti-frustration plan to close it out. I like to go and build your meta Uma to make sure that you're stress-free. Now, just make them passable, hit your distance S or your turf S if you would rather. They're both fine. Make them good. don't go and spend too much time on them, because you should be spending the majority of your time going and building parents and building your Oshi. And that's really the base of the anti-frustration plane build order, is you do the Beta Uma to make it so it's less stressful, because you know you kind of have a ticket to help you go through those first couple days. Build your Oshi because that's the most fun thing to do, and build Umas that are parents, that the failed ace runs become your parents if you can, or just go and parent build if you want to dedicate parent build, and then just go back and forth between 2-3, 2-3, and occasionally make one a little better if you find that you're getting happy with your Oshi's strength and stuff. So that is just my suggestion. That's what I try to adhere to. Let's have some fun with this CM. It's the last CM in trackblazer, which I know a lot of people are burnt out with it. It's the sprint CM. It's going to be chaos no matter what we do. The most things that you can do is just go and try to make yourself have a little bit more tickets to win, without better phrasing there. But your stats are going to help. Your skills are going to help. You can add more gambling options to high roll. You can add more mid-race speed skills for consistency. All that's going to basically make it so that you are a good baseball team that wins 60 to 65% of the time. It's going to be very difficult to go and win that 90 to 100%. Some people are going to, but just this, of all the CMs, this is the one that is going to be, no matter what you do, there's going to be times where you just lose. So don't get too frustrated if you do lose. This has been the CM overview. I hope you have enjoyed it. I know it's been a little bit longer because I kind of rambled a bit, but we haven't done a sprint CM in quite a while. After this, I will be trying to go and do the role-based guides, which will go into the additional skills themselves. I kind of gave a preview on a lot of the excels, but there is a lot of skills that have a little bit of nuance that I like to go over, as well as the cards and the characters for those. Otherwise, after the CM and after the current Cancer CM, you'll see one, I will be doing a debrief and just going over how it worked out for me personally to, sort of empathize with all of our pain. So hope you enjoy this video and this champions meeting. All that's left is for me to thank the members. Memberships are appreciated. They're never required. I try not to paywall things at all. So these are just people who are supporting me, and I really do appreciate them. But for the board tier, I do read out their names as a thank you. So thank you especially to everyone, but also for those in the board tier: Kikuzi IRL, Immobility, Mr. Merritt, Crest of Gautier, Lucifel, Oguri Capita Burger, Peter Van San, Oscar Van Bruce, Mishya, Sage, CD Ogren, Sorcerer, Elise Bright, Trevor Overtone, Dalagante, Etep Pete, Astrosarian, and Eva Delta. Appreciate you all for watching. Catch you on the next one. Take care. Burb out. Future Burb here. If you made it this far, thank you for watching it all the way, because as you know, I had to take down this video because I had audio issues, and I'm bad at editing, and the YouTube compression algorithm just kind of shredded my audio quality. So now my voice is just dying, so, trade-offs, but I'm looking forward to doing the different role guides. So I will be having those in the next couple of days, so I hope you enjoy. Also, thank you, Tokai Teo Monarch, for upgrading your sub in between the previous edit and now. So take care, everyone, for real this time. Burb out.